Hello, welcome to News Now on TV360. I am Fidelia Aguncha. South Africa's new president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has pledged to tackle corruption in his first speech as the nation's top office holder. Ramaphosa was sworn in on Thursday by the country's Chief Justice in front of the country's lawmakers. He was elected without a vote after being the only candidate nominated in the parliament in Cape Town. Ramaphosa will be replacing Jacob Zuma, who resigned on Wednesday night amid corruption allegations and pressure from his own ANC ruling party. As part of efforts to tackle insecurity issues in the country, President Muhammadu Buhari on Thursday inducted a surveillance unmanned aerial vehicle produced locally by the Nigerian Air Force. The UAV, codenamed Saigumi, is the first unmanned aerial vehicle to be produced in the country, according to the authorities, and will be used to fight terrorism and other sophisticated crimes through enhanced air surveillance. It will also be used to tackle maritime crimes and other security-related issues in the country. Nigeria has convicted the first person to be brought to justice for the Chibok girls' kidnapping. As part of a mass trial of suspected members of the Boko Haram sect, 35-year-old Haruna Yahaya was sentenced to 15 years in prison for his role in the abduction of more than 200 girls from their school in the northeastern town of Chibok in 2014. The man was one of the more than 50 convicted since the trial of hundreds of suspects resumed on Monday. Last year, the Ministry of Justice said 45 people with Boko Haram links had been convicted and jailed. A further 468 suspects were discharged and 28 others remanded for trial. A fire outbreak at the chambers of the Nigerian Senate on Thursday caused the lawmakers to suspend its plenary. The fire, which was caused by an electrical issue, had initially forced the senators to delay resumption of plenary. The issue was dealt with by the fire unit of the National Assembly, and the senators began sitting by 12. However, shortly after it began sitting, Senator Ibrahim Gober moved a motion asking that the plenary be adjourned. He argued that the chamber of the National Assembly was not conducive for the lawmakers. The motion was approved by Senate President Bukola Saraki, who adjourned plenary till next Tuesday. Lawyers in Lagos, southwest Nigeria, say they will hold a march on Tuesday to protest police brutality. The Ikeja branch of the Nigerian Bar Association say the decision to hold the protest was taken at an emergency meeting last Tuesday. The march, which will start at the Secretariat of the Lawyers and end at the Lagos State Government House, is scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th, 2018.
The essence of this our press conference today is to sensitize the populace on our planned peaceful protest march against police brutality. What we have found over time is that particularly the men of this task force in Lagos State, hiding under the auspices of the governor's office that they work for, are brutalizing innocent citizens.
We want Lagos State government to know that the people you have appointed to take care of the environment of Lagos State, they are treating those people you are governing as animals, and we are not animals. We want the Lagos State House of Assembly that we are going to approach to see if there is any reason to change the law, the enactment law that establishes this body. This particular law allows them to put police officers in charge. Probably if they can take that law and put a civilian to head that department, maybe we are going to see human face.
It is obvious that the Nigerian police does not feel responsible to the Nigerian people. They arrest them whimsically, humiliate them whimsically, extort them whimsically, kill them whimsically. Extrajudicial activities happen in the police. They are seen as a terror, and nothing is being done. It's getting even worse, and it's escalated to the point of even the lawyers themselves, who routinely interact with the police for sorting out of people who have problems with the law, are now themselves being targeted.
The Nigeria Governors Forum has met to find ways of improving internally generated revenue of states through the implementation of uniform standard in vehicle registration. Chairman of the forum, Governor Abdulaziz Yari of Zamfara State, said this while briefing State House correspondents on the outcome of the forum's meeting in Abuja. He said the decision was based on 2 presentations to the forum on how to improve the IGR through revenues from vehicle licensing and traffic management. The forum also raised another committee to interact with the National Assembly on the best way to implement the creation of state and community policing. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says most violent conflicts and killings of Nigerians in South Africa were more of criminal activities than xenophobic attacks. Tokbe Elias Fatile, the ministry spokesperson, said this while briefing journalists on a wide range of issues and activities of the ministry. Elias Fatile said the ministry was in constant touch with the Nigerian mission in South Africa to get reports of criminal-related issues involving Nigerians living in that country. At least 116 Nigerians have been reportedly killed in South Africa in the last 2 years. The Abuja command of the Nigerian police has paraded 5 alleged car snatchers within the Federal Capital Territory. The men, which the police says they have been trailing since last year, were nabbed with different cars and arms. They were paraded with stolen cars, arms, and ammunition.
These criminal elements that normally operate in the early hours of the evening drive in heavily tinted vehicles. When they get to the entrances of their targets' houses, they will blare their horns of their cars. The gate man will assume that they are family members or friends. The gates will be flung open, and they will get inside and rob the occupants of their cars and valuables, especially jewelries. I am happy to tell you today that the FCT Police Command has busted one of such gangs responsible for the evil acts. The gang is led by one Dr. Ola Solomon Jumadi, the proprietor of Vital Care Hospital in Kubwa, who is presently on the run. The command, through the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, commenced discreet investigation, which led to the arrest of the aforementioned suspects and the recovery of the robbed BMW X6 vehicle. In the course of investigation, so far, 5 vehicles that have their colors changed have been recovered, out of which 4 have been identified by their respective owners that were robbed at gunpoint in various areas of the city. In addition to this, 4 pistols with 8 rounds of live ammunition and a face mask carefully concealed in a bag in the office of the runaway Dr. Ola were recovered during execution of such warrant in the suspect hospital.
Unlike the Senate, the House of Representatives on Wednesday adopted the harmonized version of the amended Electoral Act without any dissensions. The amendment, if eventually signed by the President, will make some changes in Nigeria's Electoral Act, including reorganizing the sequence of the forthcoming 2019 elections. The federal lawmakers want their election to come up first, followed by that of state lawmakers and governors, and lastly, the presidential election. Earlier on Wednesday, 10 all-progressive lawmakers kicked against the adoption of the report, accusing the Senate President Bukola Saraki of influencing it. The APC has a majority of the 109 members of the Senate. The dissenting view of only 10 senators shows a majority of the party's lawmakers supported the amendment, which was also approved by the Senate. The national leader of the All Progressive Congress, Bola Tinubu, visited the APC National Secretariat on Wednesday. The visit comes days after the former governor of Lagos State was appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari to lead the Reconciliation Committee of the party ahead of the 2019 elections. The meeting between Tinubu and the national officers of the party lasted for about 4 hours.
We are in the building of APC National Secretariat, and we have a spokesperson. I just make a personal appearance to you out of respect. I will hand over to the spokesperson of the party to address you fully.
The terms of reference is very clear to look at areas across the country where we have issues. We're a political party, and definitely we must have issues, and we know where those issues are. So the terms of reference is very clear to reconcile members where they have disagreements, and for us to rebuild our party moving forward and ahead of the next election. We are all happy to work together. We are very delighted that Shiwaju has been given this assignment as our leader. So, and we are all ready and willing to cooperate with him. And in this meeting, we all made it very clear that we want to work with him and we want to work together. And the national chairman said, in whatever way we will need to support Shiwaju in this assignment, we'll be happy to do that.
Head of Service of the Federation, Winifred Oyoita, says no fewer than 150 Federal Civil Service Deputy Directors who sat for promotion examinations to the position of directors failed the test. Oyoita disclosed this at the second Permanent Secretary's quarterly meeting in Abuja. The Civil Service Chairperson also stated that a report would soon be presented to President Muhammadu Buhari on the minimum wage issue. The head of service said government would continue to provide conducive working environment for workers.
Madam, madam, welcome. Okay, madam, no worry. When you deliver the balance, we'll give you the goods.
No problem, no problem. All right, so now well done.
Thank you. Hey, Oga, I still say she don't bring money. Maybe we'll use this one for her now. She wants mahogany, not white wood. Oga, our work now to join wood together, deliver whatever to customer. Put the remaining profit for pocket.
Abba, this is corruption, not in my country. Corruption, not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
To have you back. Nigerian Oil Minister Emmanuel Ibe Kachiku says he is not ruffled by the recent oil price decline. According to him, OPEC needs to just focus on itself and focus on what it needs to do and forget what is happening in shale. Oil prices were trading at $64.40 a barrel on Thursday, just over 9% below the highs this year, which was above $71 per barrel reached in January. Nigeria, Africa's largest oil exporter, produces 2.07 million barrels per day, which includes 1.71 million barrels of crude oil and 362,000 barrels of condensates. Nigeria's inflation rate is now at 15.13% for the month of January. According to data from the National Bureau of Statistics, the new figures represent the 12th straight month the rate has fallen. The current rate is now 0.24 percentage points lower than the rate recorded in December, which is 15.37%. The current figures are edging closer to the government's target in the 2018 budget. The expected GDP growth in that document is put at 3.5%, while inflation is at 12.4%. TV360 spoke to some analysts to understand what is influencing inflation figures.
The downtrend from inflation, if you look at the breakdown that the NBS gave, is largely from food inflation. So what we saw was that core inflation remained flat when compared to what it was in January, and that's just largely due to, you saw like in the month of January, according to NBS release data, PMS prices were higher, kerosene, diesel prices were higher, and so what we saw was that kept core flat. But for food inflation, there was a significant downtrend. It was down about 50 basis points. And that's just largely due to, in our opinion, the high base that we saw from last year. So last year, because when the Naira depreciated, what we saw was that it became more attractive for neighboring West African countries to import food produce from Nigeria. So that drove the prices higher in terms of domestic food produce. So when you compare it to now, where the currency is now more stable, that because of that high base from last year, so when you compare it on a year-on-year basis, it makes it look more attractive. So that's what drove that downtrend, just like from food inflation, lower food inflation year-on-year. So looking at the drivers of the CPI, you look at core inflation as well as the food sub-index. On a month-on-month basis, headline inflation actually rose 0.8% and is largely driven to increases in utilities in the core sub-index. So we are looking at increases in fuel, in other fuel, gas, electricity, and water. This was actually what drove the core sub-index, which actually measures inflation, less volatile inputs such as farm inputs. While on the food inflation side, on a month-on-month basis, it actually rose, which is largely due to us stepping away from the harvest season. The harvest season ends in the month of January, and we are sort of paving the way for the planting season, which takes place in May. So right now we are sort of in the land preparation stage, and this was actually what drove the increase in the food index.
The Nigeria equity market on Thursday again closed in green with a decent volume trade. The composite index was 42,604.40, rising from 42,171.2 sin at previous traded session. Market capitalization also rose to 15.289 billion naira as against 15.133 billion naira. The four top traders were Nigeria Brewers, Dangote Cement, Lafarge Africa, and Stanbic IBTC Bank, and the top four decliners include CAP PLC, Nascon Allied Industries, Union Bank of Nigeria, and Caviton Offshore Support Group. The most traded equities for the day in terms of volume were Multiverse Mining and Exploration PLC, Skybank, Access, and First City Monument Bank. Market activities saw 5,904 deals in 615.179 million shares, exchanged 6.275 billion naira. Nigeria raised 176 billion naira worth of treasury bills at an auction. The central bank offered 6 billion naira of 3-month paper, 30 billion naira of 6-month bills, and 140 billion naira of 1-year notes. The bank issues treasury bills twice a month to help the government to finance its budget deficit, curb money supply growth, and provide an avenue for lenders to manage liquidity. Total demand for the notes stood at 229.9 billion naira, as investors were demanding as high as 20% yields for the 1-year paper, which sold for 13.7%. At least 17 people are dead after a 19-year-old man opened fire at a high school campus in Parkland, Florida. The suspect has been named as Nicholas Cruz, a former student at the school who had been expelled. It is the deadliest school shooting since 26 people were killed in Connecticut school Sandy Hook in 2012. It is also the 6th school shooting incident in 2018 that has either wounded or killed students. Ethiopian Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn has submitted a letter of resignation. The resignation of the Prime Minister, who has been in power since 2012, comes amid protracted anti-government protests and follows a nationwide state of emergency imposed last year. His stepping down from power is unprecedented in the vast East African country. Moving on to sports now, Nigeria Super Eagles have fallen again in the latest FIFA World Ranking. The Eagles are now the 50th in the world, falling down 1 place in the ranking. The Eagles, however, were placed at 9th in Africa despite an impressive showing at the 2019 African Nations Championship. Meanwhile, Germany remained on top of the ranking ahead of Brazil and Portugal. Defending champions Real Madrid boosted their chances of retaining their title for a 3rd time after an impressive victory against rivals Paris Saint-Germain on Wednesday. The Spaniard came from a goal down to defeat French league leaders 3-1 and take a solid lead to Paris. Elsewhere, Liverpool ensured that they have 1 foot in the semi-final with a convincing 5-0 away victory against Porto. It is the biggest away victory by an English team in the Champions League knockout round. Meanwhile, Cristiano Ronaldo continued his dominance of the Champions League goal-scoring chart, becoming the first player to score 100 goals for a club. The Portuguese notched his 115th and 116th Champions League goals to stay clear of his arch-rival Lionel Messi. He has now scored 11 Champions League goals this season, becoming the outright leading goal scorer. Well, that's it on News Now. Many thanks for watching. I am Fidelia Aguncha.